Welcome to my long-form video on red flags in wealthy men as shown in Sex and the City. First of all, please hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos here. You don't want to miss out. And first, some housekeeping. In my other video, I said the foremost red flag from Trey was his age. He was over 40 and he had never been married or had a serious relationship or attachment that we know of. And people started with oh, not everyone wants to get married. And what about women who are over a certain age and they've never been married? Firstly, I'm assuming most women are watching this because you want to get serious with a wealthy man, not just have fun. Men of means and background who have never married most likely will not marry you. They usually have something to hide, so you don't want to date them either. Next, men usually get all the advantages from marrying. Women get more labor. So an unmarried woman is usually a smart woman. Marriage is pointless if it doesn't elevate you. It takes time to build yourself into a woman capable of getting a top guy. I often talk about how older women are poised to marry well. Well, many of these women are marrying for the first time at an advanced age, but their husbands have been married before. And I've observed unusual choices are more likely to be the second or third wife in pairings with wealthy men. So if you're from a different class background, if you're a woman of color, marrying interracially, if you're older, etc. Some examples include the actress Glenn Close, Dr. Dambisa Moyo, Mellody Hobson. So Dr. Moyo was 50 years old, marrying a billionaire, but it was her first marriage. He was divorced. Mellody Hobson, who married George Lucas, was over 40. This was his third marriage, her first marriage. Eve, she was in her 40s getting married for the first time. This was her husband's second marriage. Mrs. Norton, I believe it was his second marriage. It was her, that is Gwen Adams, wife to billionaire Peter Norton. It was his second marriage. I believe it was her first, but the research doesn't tell me exactly. But nonetheless, there's nothing shocking about that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Wealthy men are socialized to marry early, and so they're going to marry who's around when they're ready to get married, typically wealthy women of their own ethnic background. But while wealthy people value marriage, they're also forthright enough to admit that the same person might not serve your needs best for the entire lifetime. So they do often divorce and remarry. And in the next marriage, wealthy men are looking for women who are brilliant in their own right, who are unencumbered by children. So either your children are grown or you never had any. Well-traveled, exciting, vibrant, and fit. I mean, look at George Clooney and Amal. He bypassed all the young starlets of Hollywood to marry an older lawyer because he loved her brilliance and accomplishments. So today's lesson is that everything you're doing is preparing you or not preparing you for your future. Often women talk about giving up opportunities to make a relationship work. They feel like they have to sacrifice their ambitions or possible scholastic achievements so that their man is not intimidated or jealous. Hello, Simone Biles. But whatever you think of these relationships I've just mentioned, their man is definitely not intimidated. It can't be denied that some of the top men in the world are snapping up accomplished older women because they admire their achievements. You can have it all, so don't throw yourself away because you're afraid or you don't see how your vision can come to pass. I think Dr. Moyo, Mellody Hobson, and all the other over 40 or even over 50 women who didn't fit the narrative and had never been married had to create a new mindset and path. And this is something women are used to doing. We're innovators when it comes to style and education, entrepreneurship. So why do we often feel obliged to follow someone else's path in relationships when clearly what we're doing or what they're doing is not working? Before these women could have a successful relationship, I believe they had to make peace with the fact that whatever relationship they were in wasn't going to look like everyone else's because their life and their path was not like everyone else's. These women are outstanding. And when you're outstanding, you can't do things like average people. Both Hobson and Moyo work in finance. I presume they did a cost-benefit analysis. Being single long-term when everyone around them was marrying might have been hard. But these women knew instinctively they could only lose by marrying down. By holding out, it was possible they would land a great catch or be single forever. And now they recognize that singleness was fantastic for their wealth opportunities and building. So today's lesson is to see the opportunity of where you are. Build where you are. You don't have to wait for next month, next year, when you move, when you get that degree, when you get fitter. Start now. And remember that only you determine your future. But back to why a never been married man of a certain age is such a huge red flag. Even if he started out perfectly normal, being alone that long has warped him. And the abnormally close relationship that he had with Bunny was evidence of that. I mean, a lot of you all were saying, oh, it was freaky how close they were. Bunny had basically been serving as a surrogate wife, the domestic tasks that needed doing, like the decorating of his apartment, his social obligations, this sort of just all the minutia of a life that a wife takes care of, his mother had been doing, which got him into some very strange habits. And when Charlotte came in and was trying to stabilize and normalize his life, Trey was unaware anything was even wrong. Because I can't show clips on YouTube, you all will have to take my word for it. But the diehard fans remember when Trey was sick and Bunny came into his bedroom unannounced and uninvited to rub Vicks Vapor Rub onto his chest when she was sitting there talking to him while he was bathing. And Charlotte came in both those scenarios. I'm like, this is some weird, freaky stuff. I cannot be down with this. But this was the only close relationship he had. What's that? I'm always telling you all, men don't really have friends, okay? It's women that are their lifeline to the social circle. So if his primary means of socialization is his mother, that is not going to lend itself to normalcy, okay? And you're going to be fighting an uphill battle because, as Charlotte told Bunny, there can only be one lady of the house. She's not going to want to relinquish her role in her son's life after 40 plus years. And it's going to be too much of a struggle. It's going to be a drama. Do you want to bring children into that? It's just better not to even have that headache to begin with. Because going back to the older men I mentioned earlier who married to please themselves the second time around or third time around after marrying a more traditional choice in the first place, I think the reason a lot of those men, like George Lucas, for example, might have been okay with marrying an unusual sort of choice, an older black woman who had never been married, was because his parents were dead. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but he was in his 70s. He could do what he wanted to do. It also depends on the type of wealth your man has. Trey had family money. Even though he was a doctor, he certainly didn't get that Park Avenue apartment by being a surgeon. His extravagant lifestyle came from his family's money. So he definitely had to marry with an eye towards his mother's approval. And she felt entitled to interfere in his personal decisions. Like when she told Charlotte, I don't want an Oriental grandchild. In addition to being racist, she felt entitled to interfere in their personal affairs because she had the purse strings. At the end of the day, it was their apartment. When I say there, I mean the McDougal family. And whenever Charlotte wanted to change things, Bunny was like, excuse me, this apartment belongs to my family. When she wanted to divorce Trey, Bunny was fighting her over the apartment, even though Trey stood up for Charlotte in the end and she got the apartment. Had they remained married, I think the continual power struggle with Bunny would have continued to be an issue. They never even had children because of their fertility issues and because partially Bunny didn't want them to adopt. Trey said he was tired of the whole thing. He was tired of the fertility drugs making Charlotte act crazy and he just wanted to just chill for a while on the baby talk. But I think he was influenced by what his mother said because, again, she had been the primary relationship in his life for so long. She's got the financial access on lock, the social access on lock. You can't compete with that. Who wants to come into a man's life when he's grown and try to change things around? Nobody. Let him do the changing because a man can make a clean sweep in a way you could never imagine. For example, Dr. Dambisa Moyo married Jared Smith, the billionaire from Qualtrics. That man was a white Mormon. She's not a Mormon. She's not white. But like I said, once he got older, made his own money, lived his life, he figured out he didn't want the lifestyle he had been raised in. After a successful divorce from his wife, he lived solo for a while. I think it was a few years, but I don't feel like looking it up. And then after a while of dating, he found what he wanted, what suited him in the next stage of his life, which was a woman who wasn't of his own ethnic group or religion. But apparently he wasn't that down with Mormonism to begin with. So he married who he wanted to marry, family be damned. So if a man wants to, he will. You don't have to worry about changing his life. He'll change his life to make room for you in it. Now on to Mr. Big. Carrie should have been warned by the fact that he did not have any friends. Like I said, men don't typically have a lot of close personal friends, but men of old money have been raised around the same people their whole lives. They went to Andover together, they've been to the Ivy Leagues together, they were on Wall Street together. So why doesn't he have any friends? Nobody from that social circle. In my opinion, it's because he screwed over his first wife. As he said, he cheated on her with her best friend, and because she was so plugged into the social scene, because women rule the social scene, he got unceremoniously kicked out of the nest. And now you only see him hanging with losers when you see him with anyone at all. This is background dependent. If you have a wealthy man, but he's new money, a different set of rules applies. But if this guy is old money and he doesn't have any friends from childhood or just people that he knows around in a group, if nobody is really that close to him, he doesn't socialize with anyone, that's a big red flag. There's a reason the people of his own class are avoiding him like the plague, and it's probably not because he's Robin Hood. Also, birds of a feather flock together. So look at who he was with. The only guy you see more than once, Mr. Wonderful, as Carrie calls him, was that horrible loudmouth jerk who was just cursing and just a real misogynist and whatnot. What does it say that Big is okay hanging with him? Not only is this his only option, but birds of a feather do flock together. And we see it coming out in Big's habit. Big is a modelizer. Big runs women. Big treats women in an untoward way who are not of his own background. So we can see all that by looking at his friend, who might be a bit coarser, who might not be as outwardly suave, as debonair. He's not as handsome. He's not as polished, but their mental attitudes are the same, and that's how they aligned. For the most part, Big is a loner, and we see that in the series. He's always telling Carrie something masculine. Oh, I had tickets to a Yankee doubleheader. I had nobody to take. I had tickets to the Knicks game. Sir, why are you always trying to take a woman to these sporting events? Where are your friends? For the most part, he did not have any. At their rehearsal dinner, who was there to stand up for him? Nobody. Carrie had all of her girlfriends and people from when she worked at Vogue and the newspaper and all these individuals, and Big had his business partner. But his biggest red flag, no pun intended, was that his ideal woman looked nothing like Carrie. So Big dated the spectrum of women. I even saw a black model hanging on his arm during his modelizer days. But he only got serious, like as in marriage, with tall, thin, sophisticated brunettes who came from his same kind of background. Carrie was concerned about this, so she went and stalked his ex-wife when she found out he had been married before, and got a look at the wife. And I noticed how in the next frame she's already changing herself to look more like the wife. She straightens her hair, which looked gorgeous, by the way. She's dressed up in that suit. It was painful to watch, honestly. She looked good, but she wasn't being herself because she thought she could sort of shift into competing with and being the kind of girl who could capture his attention. That's not it. If you look at a man's dating history and all the women look like the exact opposite of you, if they're all very tall and you're very short, they're all very thin and you're plus size, they're all some kind of ethnicity and you're a different ethnicity, you should watch yourself. Now, there are cases, like I mentioned earlier, when men who have gone for one type or even married that type have ended up married for the second or third time to a completely opposite type of woman. And that's either because that type is what they wanted all along, and they were going along with some kind of respectability politics before that, or because men can care for different kinds of women. But what characterizes a man caring about you and not just settling for you is the way that he treats you. Is he doing for you what he did for those women or better? If he married his white blonde girlfriend in record time, is he now introducing you to his friends and his family early? Is he proud to be seen with you? Is he pushing for a commitment? Is he eager to be exclusive? That's what Mr. Big was doing with Natasha and his first wife. But with Carrie, he was seeing her on the sly, and he wasn't pressed about when he was going to see her again. She was not meeting his friends, the two that he had, and his family. And, she kept nagging at him to meet his mother. He was like, absolutely not. Know your place, you low-level bitch. Truth be told, they spent most of their time tucked away inside or in some kind of secluded hideaway, like when he was taking her to the low-level Chinese place or when he wanted to get out of the country. Oh, I'll pay for us to go to the islands. Yeah, any place I don't have to be seen with you in New York public is great for me. Carrie literally said Big kept his mother away like she was a leper. She peeped game, but she didn't want to acknowledge what it meant. If a man is not excited to have you introduced to his mother, that's a huge sign. My father just told you all yesterday from his own lips, if it's been 6 months and you haven't met his mother, You're not the one. He does not like you. But the one thing that characterizes that a man is settling the most is him pushing you to look like his ideal. If a man ever tells you you would be perfect if you changed your intrinsic characteristics, you need to run. If you're a 460 and Fenty and he's telling you you should dye your hair ash blonde and get blue contacts, dip. This goes back to the whole Big and Carrie dynamic when he gave her the swan purse. When he had things to say about her clothing, he was letting her know he did not want a girlfriend. He wanted a blank slate he could play Pygmalion to, but only for a temporary time. He just wanted you to be good enough to play with, and then he was going to discard you. Again, Carrie saw and sensed this. She said, I catch myself posing when I'm with him. I'm not like me. I'm together Carrie. I put together little outfits. I'm casual Carrie, sexy Carrie, this Carrie, that Carrie. And Miranda's like, why can't you be yourself with this guy? And, Carrie, I'm not good enough. I'm afraid he's going to leave me for a perfect woman who never passes gas. And that's exactly what he did. He left you for a perfect woman. And Carrie had a level of self-awareness. She was just hoping that the truth she was intuiting turned out not to be true. Please stop blinding yourself to the reality. If you've ever had to wonder if a guy really loves you or if he thinks you're good enough, that's your answer. The right man, I don't care if you're as different as night and day, will let you know he's serious about you. It doesn't matter if you are worlds apart in class, in education, in anything, because I can list you chapter and verse. Wealthy men who have gone into what some would consider the gutter for a wife. I just paused there so you could ruminate on that. But anyway, all that matters is if he really cares about you. If he thinks you're the one, he's not going to care what anyone else thinks. He might do things to make you more comfortable, but at the end of the day, a man who loves you is going to defend you warts and all. And he's going to tell other people that they can't talk about you. The only reason the people in Big's life who existed, the handful of them, felt empowered to say whatever was because he had let them know that Carrie was a nothing special girl. When he introduced her to that friend of his and he goes, Julia, ha ha ha, thinking, she was somebody else, it's because Big has been talking about Julia, who was his type, another tall, thin, sophisticated brunette. I wish I could show clips here. It's hard for those of you who haven't watched without the clips. But yes, Melissa, when they bump into Melissa at that same party, another tall, thin, sophisticated brunette. Carrie had all the clues in the world. She had all the context, but she didn't want to put them together because she didn't like the truth that they spelled out. And every time she got close to saying the real thing to Big, every time she got close to, saying, is this really anything? Or are you wasting my time? She backed off because she knew what the answer was going to be. He didn't mind losing her because it was never that serious. I'll say whatever. He might not have treated Natasha well. In fact, he didn't treat her well, but he chased her, both metaphorically and physically, because when he saw Natasha slipping through his fingers because of his affair with Carrie, he was like, dang, I'm going to do what it takes. Like, I'm going to go in there and sit by her side and face the tribunal of her parents and hang my head low because I've done wrong. And now my wife has fallen down the stairs and busted her mouth open chasing my mistress. But his instinct wasn't to go in there and pat Carrie on the shoulder and comfort Carrie. He was running to his wife, because that's whose opinion he cared about. That was the woman he loved. Despite whatever he might have told Carrie, the proof was in the pudding. So the biggest sign is if a man is not willing to treat you well. If he wanted to, he would. That's it, guys. Please subscribe here for more content. And if you have any thoughts on what you would like to see in these long form videos, please let me know. I am open to your suggestions. Thank you again and have a good day.